What do you do when you mix good looks, a ramjet baguette, and a Mach 1.8 death machine? No, it's not the next Fast and Furious movie, filmed in Paris. It's the Dassault Rafale. It's fast, it's deadly, and it has more different roles than Christian Bale. From dogfights to nuclear strikes, this thing does it all, and it does it with flair. While other countries are busy building bulky brute force machines, France was over here crafting a high-performance, all-purpose aircraft that looks like it should be hanging in the Louvre. Today, we're talking all about French pride, drama, and what makes the Rafale so damn good. In the late 1970s, France's Air Force and Navy faced a dilemma. They needed a new fighter to replace a fleet of aging aircraft. Rather than develop separate planes, both the Navy and Air Force agreed it'd be ideal to craft one design that could do it all. Initially, France joined a pan-European effort to create a future European fighter aircraft alongside Britain, Germany, Italy, and Spain. This project would eventually spawn the Eurofighter Typhoon, but not with French help. And you're probably wondering why. Well, as the story goes, differing visions and a tussle over leadership led France to break away in 1985 with a characteristically French merci, but we know better. You see, France wanted a lighter multi-role jet and a carrier-capable one as well, whereas some partners wanted a heavier air superiority fighter. Faced with too many cooks in the kitchen, France decided to take its recipe and went home to bake its own fighter. This independent path brought us to the Rafale, meaning gust of wind, and also burst of fire in a military sense. The name turned out appropriate because the Rafale blew in as bold as a gust of innovation. Dassault Aviation built a technology demonstrator called the Rafale A, which first flew in 1986. This sleek prototype proved France's concept, a versatile twin-engine jet nimble enough for dogfights, yet adaptable to air-to-ground missions, reconnaissance, and even those nuclear strike roles. Importantly, Rafale A was used to validate an unstable delta wing plus canard configuration, a setup that promised extreme agility without compromising on high-speed flight. This was something that the French and the Dassault Corporation knew all about. Funnily enough, the prototype was actually powered by the Hornet's GE404 engines, but by the early 1990s, the design was split into three versions. There was the Rafale B that had 2 seats, the Rafale C with a single seat, and the Rafale M for the Navy. Alas, something happened to the world just after this moment. The Cold War ended. Because of that, there were some pretty major budget cuts and it delayed the program roughly by 6 years, seeing the first of these jets enter service around 2001 rather than the mid-90s. But France still persisted. After all, replacing several different older aircraft with one just omni-role jet, as I like to call it, was too good of a goal to abandon. So what was the catch? What was the key ingredient that made the Rafale soup so damn good? It's those delta wings and canards. That's what French design school was all about. Heck, even the word canard is actually French. This combo isn't actually just an aesthetic quirk, it's the heart of the Rafale's design philosophy. France has loved delta wings since the Mirage fighters of the early 1960s, which used pure delta wings for high supersonic speed and simplicity. But delta wings alone can make a plane a bit of a handful at low speeds or during turns. The solution? You add canards to the mix for extra lift and control. Dassault chose a close-coupled canard delta arrangement specifically to maximize maneuverability. Essentially, the canards act like front flippers, creating vortices and energizing the airflow over the wing and helping the jet pull higher alpha without stalling. The result of this design, however, is an aerodynamically unstable aircraft that demands fly-by-wire computer controls to keep it in check, but that instability is exactly what makes it so agile. It's like a race car turned for slight oversteer. A little instability yields tremendous responsiveness if managed correctly. Delta wings also have practical benefits. They provide a lot of lift and internal volume. This translates to good high altitude performance and space for fuel and payload. Dassault capitalized on this because the Rafale carries more fuel and weapons for its size than one might expect, in part due to that broad delta wing. Its combat range of over 1,000 and up to 1,400 kilometers in all mission profiles is larger than that of other similarly sized aircraft, such as the Super Hornet F-16 or the MiG-29 M2. The French had in mind the developments of the early 90s and the US's fascination with stealth aircraft, and designed the Rafale with this in mind as well. And it's why today the Rafale is considered a 4th or 4.5 generation jet. And believe it or not, it has one of the smallest radar cross-sections in that generation as well. This is due to its design choices, such as S-shaped intakes and hidden compressors, serrated edges on the surfaces, single tails, and extremely sexy and sleek design, which definitely turns heads. And all of this is powered by two Snecma M88 engines, giving it not only that impressive Mach 1.8 maximum speed, but also the quite impressive supercruise ability of Mach 1.4, almost matching that of the famous F-22. Another hallmark of the Rafale design is its focus on pilot ergonomics and visibility, the latter of which you can thank its bubble canopy and its elevated seat. But being omni-role, which is the French fancy word for multi-role, means the Rafale was built to handle virtually any mission you could throw at it, and it's packed with advanced features to do so. At the core is an integrated avionics suite that would make a tech geek grin. The jet's nerve center is the Thales RBE-28A radar, one of the first European AESA radars. But this radar is probably one of the key limitations of the Rafale as well. Its estimated range is around 200 kilometers, which is somewhat limited compared to other fighters today. But remember, this is not only a fighter. The French were also working on an upgrade as we speak with the RBE-2XG, which should have a significantly extended range and narrow beams. Radar is coupled with OSF, which means... oh, are you kidding me? I'm not trying to pronounce that. But basically an infrared search and track sensor mounted just in front of the canopy. A nice detail to note is that when the OSF isn't used, it's turned backwards to further lower the RCS. Russians have traditionally mounted the IRST on their jets to help with dogfights, but to also fire heat-seeking missiles without using the radar. But in the 21st century, where stealth fighters dominate the skies, this might be one of the only ways to detect one. The French also have quite profoundly demonstrated how the Rafale won in a dogfight against the F-22 Raptor in one of their exercises, precisely due to their system and extremely good maneuverability. And all of these gimmicks are not just used offensively, because defensively, the Rafale is a flying electronic fortress. The heart, or the brain, if you will, of the Rafale systems is Spectra. And no, it's not the antagonist organization from a James Bond novel. Spectra features a number of sensors, radar wave detection, early missile warnings, jammers, etc. that work in fusion to give the pilot information when, where, and how it's being painted and targeted. And then they can return fire with their impressive armament. When it came to building one of the best jets in the world, the French needed to find the very best talent. They needed cutting-edge engine engineers, aerospace scientists, and someone to craft the fuselage like a bakery making the perfect croissant. But when you need the very best talent, even bespoke enough to build one of the best fighter jets in the world, where do you go? I am talking, of course, about using Odoo recruitment for your business. Odoo is an all-in-one management software that provides entrepreneurs with a range of applications, such as invoicing, accounting, project management, inventory, website creation, and much more. And guys and girls, seriously, their Odoo recruitment streamlines your entire recruiting process, so you can find the very best people for your team quickly and easily. And this is how it works. First, there is a central dashboard where you can see all of the job openings, candidate applications, and scheduled interviews all in one place. Odoo uses the Kanban style to sort your candidates, like cards that you can move across stages. And when candidates are ready to interview, they can choose a time based on their availability, integrating into Google Calendar and Outlook, and they even get automatic progress updates and reminders. And when you're ready to hire, you can generate and send job offer letters, signing them online, and then easily convert your chosen candidate into an employee through Odoo Chatter. And the best part of all of this is that it's free for life. And when your business expands, you can access all of the rest of the applications on Odoo starting from 1990 euros per month. So click the link down below for free and start making money. Certainly, a star of Rafale's offensive capabilities is the one project that the Europeans managed to agree upon, and complete it without slapping each other with insults about each other's cuisine and wine. It's called the Meteor missile. Ever since the 90s, Europe has been hard-pressed for not just an alternative, but an improvement over the AMRAAM missile. The result is a state-of-the-art ramjet-powered missile that probably has the largest no-escape zone in the world. The no-escape zone is a range at which the enemy aircraft simply cannot escape the missile because it still has enough power to counter any defensive maneuver. In case of the Meteor, the no-escape zone is approximately 2 to 3 times larger than the AIM-120 or the Russian R-77. Even the latest AIM-120D can't even compete with the Meteor in this aspect. Meteor, being a ramjet-powered missile, after spending the initial solid fuel, can control the amount of fuel it is using for the rest of the flight. If push comes to shove, it can speed this fuel fast, or it can cruise for a long-distance kill. Officially, the Meteor's range is around 200 kilometers, but it is speculated to be up to 300 kilometers in extreme cases when targeting large and less maneuverable targets. The French can proudly say that the Rafale carries all domestic weaponry for any type of mission. And of course, it can field standard NATO weapons if needed, but its key weapons, such as the Scalp EG, famously known as the Storm Shadow, ASMP nuclear cruise missile, and ASSM hammer bombs, are all Michelin star approved and made at home. But the French haven't finished cooking. As we mentioned, the Rafale comes in 3 versions, the B, C, and M, and 4 tranches or blocks if you prefer, the F1, F2, F3, and F4. The future F5 upgrade is currently in development. So currently the latest and greatest is the F4 variant that features all of the stuff we just listed. Initially, the Rafale was equipped with the older PESA radar, but since the F3R, the new AESA radar has become the standard, and the F5 will feature the new radar that we have previously mentioned as well. So Rafale is 100% French, and that means a lot for the French defense industry. But unfortunately for the French, the sales were rather disappointing. For many years, the Rafale was something of an underdog in the global fighter market. Despite its capabilities, it struggled to score export orders in the 2000s. Competing against American F-15s, F-16s, and even the Eurofighter, the Rafale was often the bridesmaid, never the bride. On the other hand, Russian planes dominated third world countries' markets, and Rafale couldn't compete with their prices. So there were a lot of high-profile disappointments. It lost out in deals for South Korea and Singapore, which chose the F-15, and Morocco, who would go with the F-16. But most famous of all, it was Brazil, who was tantalizingly close to getting the aircraft, but ultimately they got the Delta Wing competitor from Sweden, the Gripen, that got picked in 2013. And of course, I've done a whole video about the Gripen family, which you can watch right now on the channel. Part of the challenge was the cost. As a twin-engine jet built to France's bespoke standards, it was never going to be the cheapest option. Also, there were plenty of geopolitical headwinds. Many countries simply defaulted to American or Russian jets due to strategic ties. But France was persistent, even tying purchase orders with diplomatic sweeteners and financing deals. And probably plenty of French wine. The breakthrough finally came in 2015 when Egypt signed on as the first export customer, ordering 24 Rafales. Just a couple of months later, Qatar followed through with its own order for 24 jets. Suddenly, the Rafale went from export zero to hero. So what exactly changed? Well, several factors converged. First, the Arab Spring and regional conflicts made Egypt and Qatar keen to bolster their air forces, and France offered attractive financing and quick delivery by diverting some of its own production slots. Additionally, the Rafale came with no American strings attached. Because unlike American jets, which come with usage restrictions and political conditions, France was willing to sell advanced systems and weapons like the Scalp cruise missile without hesitation. In Egypt's case, the United States had been more hesitant to supply certain arms, so the Egyptians would turn to France, who said, "Bien sir, would you like a dessert with that?" and even arrange loans to facilitate the deal. And this strategy worked. Analysts noted that the France's responsiveness and perhaps uncertainty about US support influenced these quick succession sales. And from there, momentum built. India was the next big prize. They had run an exhaustive competition called the MMRCA to buy 126 medium multi-role combat aircraft. Rafale actually won this contest in 2012 as a lower risk, best value choice, but protracted negotiations over local production caused it to collapse. By 2015, India was still in urgent need of new fighters, so the Indian government inked a direct deal for 36 Rafales in 2016. This deal, worth around $8.7 billion, was not without controversy domestically, but by 2020 the Indian Air Force began receiving these Rafales, and their arrival was greeted with quite a bit of fanfare. The first Indian Rafale squadron quickly became the sharp tip of India's air power spear. The fact that India, a major military power, chose the Rafale over alternatives from both the US and Russia, and even other European countries, was a huge endorsement. It also didn't hurt that the Rafale came with advanced Meteor missiles, Scalp cruise missiles, and a promise of integration with India's existing arsenal. Since then, the Rafale has been on a roll. Greece, feeling the heat from regional tensions, decided to buy Rafales in 2021, and they ended up with 24 of their own. Croatia would follow suit, purchasing 12 second-hand Rafales in 2021 to modernize its fleet. And almost like a house of cards, their neighbours Serbia, a traditional buyer of Russian weaponry, would actually switch to Rafales and ink a deal for 12 new aircraft. But perhaps the biggest surprise was the United Arab Emirates. A long user of the American F-16 and hopeful for American F-35s, the UAE instead signed a massive contract in 2021 for 80 Rafale F-4 variants. This staggering $19 billion deal was a record breaker for Dassault and cemented Rafale's position as an export champion. So to cut it short, Dassault came from a no-order situation to a "how the hell are we going to build all these jets" situation in only a decade. But, and there's always a but, the future might hold surprises. We have to talk about its combat debut. During the Indo-Pakistani clashes of 2025, the Indians launched Operation Sindoor as a retaliation for a terrorist attack that occurred in Kashmir, an area which two nations have been fighting over for decades. The tip of the spear of the Indian attack were the Rafale, and the first Rafale was shot down. Now, the Pakistanis have claimed 3 aircraft, but remains of only one were ever found, and it's still unknown if it was shot down by the enemy jets or anti-air defense. But the fact is, it was shot down. Chinese J-10s, that we talked about recently on the channel, proved to be a more significant threat and used the long-range PL-15 missiles during the combat missions. We know this because remains of these missiles have been found on Indian-controlled territory. Whether or not this missile actually shot down the Rafale, well, I guess we'll probably never know. Now, it's important to not make any quick conclusions. Does this mean the Rafale is a bad jet? Most certainly not. It was a high-risk mission from the get-go. The Pakistani Air Force and Air Defense knew where the threat was coming from, and the Indians basically announced that they were going to attack, giving the Pakistanis time to prepare. Flying into a danger zone covered with enemy air defense complemented by modern fighters equipped with AESA radars and a new long-range missile is guaranteed to end up with some combat losses. And this is exactly what the Indian Air Force's spokesperson said. Essentially, the Rafale did its mission, launching the Scalp EG missiles deep into Pakistan's territory, as we have witnessed with the debris of at least one of the shot down missiles. And Pakistan did a good job of defending. And that's pretty much the end of the story, at least for now. So what is the future for the Rafale in general? Well, regardless of what we talked about in the previous chapter, it's still very bright. Dassault is overbooked with orders, and it will take years for them to just clear the backlog of current orders. New ones are probably coming as well, because let's be honest, the Rafale is one of the best aircraft flying today, and probably the only, as the French would say, omni-role aircraft, because it can fulfill any type of mission equally well. And the French should be proud of this jet, because they proved to the world that they can still build a modern, amazing aircraft, with a panoplia of weapons for it to use, and the electronics behind all of the systems inside. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know what you'd like to see next on the channel. And please, don't fight a war in the comments, it's no place for that. I understand that many people from many nations might have conflicting reports about sort of modern events that may happen, and we try our best to report as accurately as possible. Let's just remember that this channel is all about our love of engineering of amazing aircraft, and leave it at that. Thanks for watching.